Hello, welcome back to episode 4 of my vlog. I don't understand why I want to say vlog every time I say it, but that's what I want to do. I am unfortunately, probably for you, starting to get a little bit more familiar and comfortable in front of the camera. So I am just going to speak. I'm going to do this in one take. The biggest feedback that I've had since last week's show seems to be revolving around the games-based approach and some different opinions coming through about what it is. Some people who say they've been using it for years and years, but then describing what it is, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like the games-based approach. So I thought I would speak about that a little bit today, but before I do, I want to get on my soapbox about one thing. A few people have been commenting privately and publicly about the way I'm doing this, the who they think I'm addressing and so on. But it's quite interesting. It seems to be coming from both ends of the spectrum. So a few of you have been saying that you think it looks like I'm aiming more level 4 and 5 coaches. And then a few of you have been saying I'm dumbing it down too much. So I'm like, right, so where am I pitching this? So let's get one thing straight. Number one, I could not give a flying bleep what level of coach you are. In my opinion, I was starting very general because I wanted it to go down a certain road. I'm hoping it's going to be steered by you because I don't preach. I don't like to preach. I just want to try and help connect people and share some ideas. So I do not care. I genuinely do not care what level of coach you are. I think that anyone that associates themselves with a level is deluded, because the level of coach that you are in terms of qualification means very little in the big bad world of tennis. In 26 years that I've coached, I think I've only had one person that I heard use my qualification as some sort of label for being coached by me. And that was a mother of a son just a few years ago. And I heard her say to other parents, oh, my kid gets coached by a level 5, blah, blah, blah. And I literally stepped in and said, look, stop that right away because you sound mental. But apart from that, no one has ever even asked me what qualification I am. They tend to go on, obviously there'll be a bit of reputation attached, but they tend to go on how you are as a person. So let's forget about level 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. There are amazing coaches who are probably either even unqualified or level 1, 2 or 3. And there's some bog standard coaches that are level 4 and 5, but they've followed it through. They have a level of academia. They've committed to it and they've managed to get through the course, but it doesn't define you as a coach. And some of you might be thinking, what a stupid thing to say for a coach educator, but I have my feet on the ground. I'm not saying education is not important, because it clearly is, to standardize levels throughout the industry and so on, but it doesn't define you as a coach. It's what you do with your qualification that will define your reputation in the area that you work in or further afield. So get back off my soapbox and start to talk about the games-based approach. So this was the first method I was ever taught as a coach when I was 19, and I did my what would be considered now the level 4 when I was about 21, which in hindsight is ridiculous. I should not be the second highest qualification at 21, but again, that's maybe for another soapbox moment. But this was the method. It was a games-based approach, and it was kind of done to us. It was sold to us in an egg timer. So the idea being that you looked at the game, and then you would narrow it down to one thing that you thought, right, I need to work on this, and then you would open it back out into the game. So that is one way of thinking of it. For me, I think of hopefully an even more basic way, that there are two ways you can think of it. You can take technique and you can apply it to tactics. There's complete rationale with that. I will help them become more skillful and more able at the technique and the skills and so on, and then I'll put it into a game. Okay, so that it would be more maybe going from a model-based approach, and then of course putting it into tactics. Yeah. The second way you can do it is to start tactically, and then look at what needs to be worked on, and then develop the skills or the technique to do it. So that is more game based. You're starting tactically and then going to the technically, and then I suppose going back to the tactical. So I suppose that egg timer thing could work as a kind of picture or illustration. So for me, that's really my method, but it's come about because when I first started coaching, I had no qualifications. So of course I didn't have a clue what I was to do. So I just played the game with people. It made sense to me. I played an okay level, and I just helped people play the game better, and then would spot things and go, oh, if you do this a little bit differently. And quite often I wasn't even getting technical. It was about decision making, positioning. It was about maybe how they were thinking in between points, maybe controlling themselves. How I tried to try and make them feel good about themselves, so that when they played, they weren't thinking or worrying too much, and so on. So if I think to how I would maybe do it now as a coach, educator, if you want to call me that, it would be to structure it in such a way that people understand the game situations and then phases of play. So there are 5 game situations. So at any one time you can be serving. Of course, you can be returning. You might be in a both back situation. You might be approaching or going to the net yourself, or your opponent might be coming to the net or at the net themselves. So those kind of frame the situations, and then within all those situations there are different intentions that people talk about building training, but let's keep it more simple because the chances are you might be watching this video from outside the UK. So let's just talk about being in attack or offense, being in a neutral or rally phase, or being in defense. So any given time you could be in one of those 3 phases, but I think the biggest thing is that most of the time you might be going from one to another. So you could be going from a rally to an attack, from a rally into defense. You could be in defense and turn it around and go into attack. You could be in attack, go back to neutral, or you go back to defense. So there's all sorts of swings and roundabouts that we all know happen within the game. So this is my gripe, if I'm going to have one, is that we need, in my opinion, to focus on the game, to understand the game. And what's happened in the last maybe 10 to 15 years is that there are waves of coaches coming into tennis that have not experienced playing the game. Now, I'm not getting on my soapbox about this, believe it or not, because I'm not saying you have to be a great player to be a great tennis coach. But it would bloody well help if you understood the thing that you're trying to teach. And the thing is not technique. The thing is the game, the sport. So that for me is one reason that I see coaches coming in, is that they've been brought up in an era where coaching has been the thing and not actually competing. And again, I'm not talking about competing as in you have to compete at this level. So let me give you an example. I'm 44 years old and used to compete a lot when I was a junior and a young adult. And then business takes over. You play leagues, you play National League, you play Scottish Cup, you maybe play the odd tournament and so on. I'm thinking about getting back into competition next year. So I'm 45 in March and I'm thinking, right, let's get maybe into the vets, admit finally that I am actually an old man, and play. And I've been amazed at how many people have kind of like turned their nose up a little bit at the suggestion of me getting back to competition, as if they think that I'm saying I'm an unbelievably good player. For me, that just sums it up. We don't have a culture of competing in our sport. If somebody who's 44 years old and plays okay tennis is thinking about, or even has the audacity to say, I'm going to get back into competition, and people are like, who do you think you are, kind of thing. So we need to sell the game, sell the sport, so that everyone can compete at every single level. So now I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. So let's get back to the games-based approach, because I'm feeling slightly ranty. Games-based approach. So we've got those game situations and we've got the phases of play. Within that, you have to have the eye to be able to see where things are excelling, where things are maybe going wrong, where things are maybe have potential or could be done more, because I think we tend to, as coaches, hook on what people can't do. But if you spend 80 to 90% of your time working on things that they don't do so well, you're going to have a pretty hard sell to motivate that player over and over. So my preference would be do more good. More good equals less bad. So do you have the eye to pick out those things, see what's happening, and then do you have the eye to actually understand why it's going wrong, to trace it back to the root cause? Is it because simply they're not switched on, they're not focused, they're not athletic enough to start with? It might be that they are timing their split step wrong. They're moving either too late or too early. It might be that they're moving inefficiently to the ball. It could be that when they get there, they don't set up well. There's just a million and one different things that could be happening. But you have to have the eye to see that. And in my opinion, you have to have the eye to see it within a game, not just in a drill. So YouTube is littered with people posting videos of their players where they're standing in a side profile, hitting beautifully up and down the court with no movement, no points, no pressure at all. And there's a litter of comments underneath saying, look at this, and they're like, oh, great work, coach, yeah, unbelievable. It's like, I could teach my mum how to hit the ball like that. So we need to see, I'd love to see more videos of, look at my player really struggle out wide on their backhand and have the hand skills to counterpunch or stay in the point. Look at my player working his ass off to just scrape the ball back. They might not even get the point, but they're working hard. Look at my player, look at the decision my player made here when they could see the opponent covering the space and they went back behind. That's the game of tennis, not hitting the ball up and down the court. So, how can I tie this up? Game-based approach is not just about playing games, and the model approach is not just about teaching conformity or a model of technique. The two have to join together, and it's entirely up to you which one you want to go, from attack to attack or attack to attack, but we have to get back to selling the sport. We have people in this country, and I say Scotland and England, say somebody like Ewan McGinn in Scotland and somebody like Barry Fulcher in England, who are giving up a ridiculous amount of time to try and create tournaments and events to get people playing, like feeder tournaments. We used to call them tableau events, where there's levels. You know, you've got club players can move, if they get to the semis or the final, they move on. Now, for me, that is a disgrace that there are people that are coaches who are actually trying to promote competition. Competition should be rife. Now, this could be misinterpreted. I am applauding Ewan and I am applauding Barry, and I'm trying to help them or promote as much as I can. But my point is, it's a disgrace that coaches are having to create competitive events that have different levels. That should be done by a whole different bunch of people that are probably getting paid to do it as well. So anyway, bit of a ranty one today. I don't know if I've tied that up well. Let me see if I can wrap it up. Game-based, know the game of tennis, have sharp eyes, be able to see where things are going wrong. You might take it out, you might basket feed it, you might build it back up, but it all starts with the end in mind, is what do I want this player to be able to do in a game to win more points, not lose so many points, protect themselves, and so on. Can you see that? Can you break it down then? Can you have a sharp eye to actually diagnose how you're going to fix this and build it back up? So it's not about just letting them play games. And the model is not just about doing tiny details. It's about a combination of the two. So as with most things, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So let's not get on our high horses or on our soapboxes about, oh, I'm a game-based coach or I'm a model coach. Let's just get together and help develop players who can compete in the game. So the last thing I'm going to say, or two things I'm going to say, the Louis Kaye podcast, Chris Suter's Tennis Journal, is on iTunes. Search for Chris Suter's Tennis Journal. You'll hear two unbelievable interviews with Louis. When I say unbelievable interviews, I mean his words are unbelievable, not my interviewing skills. That's a work in progress. The second thing is, I mentioned last time I was going to review a racket, but I've been away, I've been working too much. But Head have sent me this. I don't know if this will come out in the picture or not, but they've sent me this, the new Radical, which, look at the box, unbelievable. So I'm going to be testing this in the next couple of days. I'm waiting. They've also got a sensor that you can put on the end of the racket that you can hook up to an app. So I'm going to be testing that and the sensor. It's probably going to be next week before I get to it because I've been too busy. So Hopefully you enjoy that. Please, again, comment, start to share it, get people involved, because I don't want this to be about me. I want people to get something out of it, and a few people are, but I think there's a lot more potential. And if you are watching this from another country and you think that you are experiencing similar things, or your country has a different system completely, share that so we can start to learn from each other. So until next week, thanks for watching. Goodbye.